right. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the BC Coding Stream. Today's topic is, again, one of those interview formats, I'd say. So with me, I have Arthur Vondervoort. Is that correct? I always need to struggle on your last name. Sorry. And we're going to talk a little bit about linting and analyzers and ALCops and all those of kind of things. So, thanks for joining. Okay, I think most of you by now hopefully should have heard or seen about the LinterCop initiative. Arthur was the one who really drove this thing where it is today, with like I don't know how many different, like, are we approaching 100 rules now? What was the marker?
Yes, I think we're almost at the 100. I think we're now at like 90, 95 rules, something-ish.
Yeah.
We're almost at the beacon of 100 rules. Yeah, you're right.
So I think you have created moderated far more rules than I did originally. I think I did like the first 30 or something at best. And then I couldn't keep up with your pace anymore. But that's not the topic, not the main topic for today. The main topic is that there is something new. So Arthur, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, absolutely. This week, was it? Yeah, beginning of the week. I think it was time to rip off the band-aid and unpack a new initiative I was working on. That started around, I think, 4 months ago-ish. That I saw some things I wanted to change, and I saw some cracks left and right on the current BusinessCentral.LinterCop. And then I, if you see road for you and you see all those cracks left and right a little bit, you can try to fix those cracks. But then I took a step backwards and I said, maybe we should have to pave the whole road over. And that was my mindset a little bit. And that started a new initiative, and that's called ALCops. That's the growing further from the BusinessCentral.LinterCop you've started and created on. That builds on a new direction, also for the code analysis, of course.
Yeah, and what are some of those cracks you saw, maybe, just to get a feeling of why? I mean, it was my my baby, so to speak, at the beginning a little bit. So I would be curious, like what didn't work anymore? What was the things that you wanted to improve?
There are quite a few. There was, for example, we now on the BusinessCentral.LinterCop we use the releases of the GitHub itself, the asset, and then even the VS Code extension and maybe your pipelines will also just grab the latest release from GitHub and then use it in your DevOps solution. I think in May of 2025, GitHub updated their rate limits for an important part unauthorized request. That was, to be honest, mainly what I was using. So in our DevOps solution, for example, we just grabbed the DLL file directly from GitHub. And then our pipelines, we integrated the LinterCop. But the updated rate limit would cause quite some headaches left and right, because it was quite, I'm not sure what the exact amount was, but I think they get it back to like 60 requests per hour per public IP. So running a few pipelines or maybe some next binding majors, we quite easily hit the target. And then our pipelines broke because I couldn't download the LinterCop file. That was annoying. But also something else, even if we go further back, there's also something even you commented on, but I'm not sure if you're going to remember that. It was like, even I think in going more back in time in 2024, there was a great idea, because what I really love on the LinterCop is the discussion part, where if somebody has an idea or on a code review saw something that is strange or did go wrong, we most of the time tend to start a discussion to gather some information. What I mean by that is this a good idea? Is it to have a rule or a warning on some scenario? And there was, for example, a question that if I added a field to a related table, like for instance, for the sales header, I will create a custom field. We will also have a warning that it will, other way around, that it will also show up for those related tables where you did not include that field yet. So like for the sales header, we have the sales invoice, credit, and then the archive header and that kind of part.
Mm-hmm.
And there you planted a little seed, for me, to be honest, that you said, this isn't really linting or AL related anymore. This is more implementation details from Business Central, and not related to the AL language itself anymore. Do you remember that?
I do remember that, yes. And I still have that opinion, to be honest.
That is the right opinion. Because that was not really correct, but I blocked it on my website a little bit on it. For me, it felt it coming like a Swiss Army knife, this Central-LinterCop, and you could pull everything out of it. But maybe that wasn't the best approach anymore, because not all rules will fit for everybody. And of course, you can change that with the rule sets. But some areas, for example, the formatting part, maybe it's less likely for somebody to interest or invest in that. That if you then add new rules, you also have to update his rule set. For example, for that I don't want to look at formatting. That was a little bit of a friction sometimes. If we introduce new rules, not everybody agreed on those rules, and that's fine. But it was quite difficult for you on a new release to only accept rules that are in a domain that you want your code analysis to look at. Or more example, like Microsoft does with the ApplicationCop and the Code Cop and the UI Cop. They've broken it down also more in that area to more have different cops for each domain.
Yeah, okay. I think that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
So I think that covers at least my initial questions already. Is there already something we can look at? There's something already out there also for the audience to have a glance at, or is it all theory so far?
A good question. It started in theory, but it was like 4 months ago. And then silently, without anybody knowing it, I was working on it. I had the idea what I wanted to create. And there I started on developing that, but not ready at that point of time, not really on GitHub already. Because also for me, it was a little bit trial and error to figure out what can work, how should it work. And that was the beginning. And also a little bit struggling to get it working. So first it was a proof of concept that I developed. And then I think a few weeks, months ago, I started a new project, and that's already something we can have a look on and we can see. I could guide you to what I've created. Maybe that's a good idea.
Yes, so there's something I can show?
Yeah, I can share my screen.
Okay. We're seeing your screen now.
Great. We'll first start on a familiar homepage. We're starting first back at the BusinessCentral.LinterCop. That is where it all started. And the initiative I've developed is building further on this foundation a little bit.
I see there is also a note already in the README.
Yeah.
Probably linking at the right point, right?
Correct. This is something I edited up today. That we're not going to do any more development on this. And to be honest, there's also, before we dive into the ALCops, it was quite of a stretch for me, because to be honest, it was what I found really difficult is I was working on a new solution, that invested quite a little bit time, quite a lot of time to be honest, and I couldn't spend that time on the LinterCop itself. And to be honest, that was challenging for me because I also wanted people using LinterCop also to get new rules, to do big fixing, to add support if there are questions. So everybody who was using the LinterCop and had something the first few months, I didn't get quite easy a response or something. Sorry about that, but I was also working on the other project and I couldn't handle both of them together. The LinterCop didn't get the attention it should have, to be honest. But I thought it was beneficial to invest in a new solution so that you have a great foundation to work further on. So the LinterCop didn't get the attention it needed the past few months. But that's the reason why.
That's sometimes just the way to go, to take a break, take a pause on something so you can prepare the next step, right? And I get a feeling that this actually might be that next step that is going to be much better than what we've left with.
I believe absolutely so.
And I think, I mean, we have talked before, obviously, about this, and I think one of the main decision points was to keep the LinterCop as it is running, to not do breaking changes, right? To give a time for transition.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's still support is there that it will work as of today. But I'm not implementing new features anymore, but I will try to keep it working as long as possible. It does have some challenges. For example, there is an issue today that we're currently at, I can look it up here. I have my screen open. For example, that is one of the issues and also resolved. Today we're at 27.4 of Business Central. And that packs with the AL language extension also a 16.4 version. But when we developed the Business Central LinterCop, we were dependent most of the time on the marketplace of VS Code. And today, the latest release there, so I highlight this line here, is the 16.3. There's also initial NuGet feed was coming around a while back, the PC DevTools. That's one version lagging behind. I see 16.2. But now we have the problem that also here an issue is created that we're now missing the 16.4 version. And that's also what I now really can solve into the Business Central LinterCop, because I don't have a 16.4 source to work with. That's, for example, one example I've also now resolved with a new project, but it's quite difficult for now to fix this here in the LinterCop. Almost impossible, to be honest.
Can we look at how that approach looks like? Because I think that's one of the main changes, right? Or maybe
absolutely
related to one of the main topics.
Yep. Let's first dive in. Welcome to ALCops. So we have a new project.
Nice shiny website.
Thank you. And the first thing what I did is I've broken down into 6 different code cups. Left or below, you still see the LinterCop. So LinterCop is now a part of the ALCops. But I trimmed it down and only focused on what LinterCop I think should do is not subscribed it here, more like the code quality. I like the cyclomatic complexity, for example, one that I do like for the LinterCop. So that's still in there. But a few rules I've moved around. And the first one, I think I will go to the middle below, the PlatformCop. That is mostly focusing directly on the AL language. So independent if you're running Business Central or maybe years back a custom-based app was maybe a thing. But it doesn't look at the implementation details. For example, you should use a code unit like this, or you should use a REST code unit implementation. That's the ApplicationCop. That will look more at the coding standards, more focused on Business Central, and the PlatformCop is specific for the AL language. So I made an abstraction there between both of them. And then that was also an idea from Luc van Vught. I spoke to him. He's mostly known also in our community. And he once approached me and said, Arthur, what is your idea on having a code cop for test automation? And
Interesting.
that was also an interesting part for me, because do you have any idea what kind of rules you would do for test automation? Because my first reaction would say we already have like almost 100 rules, so we're covered, right? Do you have any insights? Because I have a funny story on that.
I have created or vibe coded a personal analyzer lately to enforce Copilot or Claude Code in my case to follow certain rules in terms of like this maybe will go too far, but I have that helper compiler script which I force or I expose to Claude Code so it can more easily compile. And what this lets me do is force analyzers upon Claude Code. So I can automatically add custom analyzers in the script and they will automatically pull in. And I have created errors, compile errors, basically with a custom analyzer to check some things in my automated tests that Claude Code generated to get a feeling for this. So there are a few rules, like I think 5 or something I've created in that cop. I would need to look them up exactly what they said, but it was something like if there is an assert true, that's probably something that is unnecessary and should not be accepted. But apart from that, I don't really know what cops or what rules we would have for test automation.
Today it's not really there yet. It's on my backlog to develop in, but I wanted to have first a separate test automation cop before I dive into creating rules for that. So that was the first step. And Luc van Vught, going back to that story, he asked me, for example, if sometimes you see tests that will then have, for example, a confirm dialog that normally the UI will show. And if you write a test, you also have to handle that confirm dialog. But he pointed out the right right approach for me. He said sometimes I see code that it doesn't validate what pop-up is stoned. It just says there is a pop-up, just answer yes. But he was quite on the right path to say you also have to test if the dialog displays the text you would expect it to be, and not some other dialog showed up. And there isn't a rule currently today that will help you get a warning or a diagnostic. For example, that says, hey, you have now written the test. You indeed validate that confirm dialog is there. But you didn't check if the confirm dialog content is there that you expect it to be. You skip that part. So it's also interesting from that idea to also have there some diagnostics on that could also help on the test automation to improve.
Absolutely.
So, to left, I think. I have a DocumentationCop and a FormattingCop, and both of them do what you would expect them to do. To be honest, the DocumentationCop will focus on the AL part. For example, one of the rules is if you create a commit, and you want to have it a comment on the commit explaining of justifying why you want to commit a transaction between some functions. It's less like tooltips, because that's more, for example, the ApplicationCop. So it was a little bit of a struggle to fit which rules should be in which cop.
Yes. I mean, I could probably imagine quite a number of rules in the DocumentationCop, to be honest. I don't know, the whole specifies value tooltips are, I don't know how useful they are. I don't know if I agree with the rule that every tooltip has to start with specifies, but that's a personal opinion of mine. I understand that we should probably follow the guidance from Microsoft there and adapt that approach, but yeah. But in general, those auto-generated tooltips, I tend to delete them because they don't bring any value in my opinion. That would be something probably you could easily detect that schema of what that tooltip might be, and yeah, might get better. And then also probably would be something possible to identify pages that would benefit from the about thing in the page instructions, or however that's called, to guide you through the pages based on complexity. I mean, there are ideas.
There are great ideas. I even think now we're discussing it, maybe there even maybe be a seventh cup. The best part here is I can create quite easily an additional cup, and now have more options to quite easily structure this. It was one of the things in LinterCop was more difficult, because your tooltips, for example, are now, let's dive into, for example, the ApplicationCop. If I do a read more, I have all my rules that are in here, and those tooltip rules are now, because there are on the Business Central part, I've now set them in the ApplicationCop, but I could use some help. Maybe we should have, I didn't want to create a UI cop, because there's also one UI cop provided by Microsoft in the product itself. So I need to think of maybe a better name. But maybe we could abstract them again. This is a first start. But now we can easily modify that even better, if it's maybe better to take them out of the ApplicationCop. I'm not sure to us today, but we have to start this year.
Now that I see that table, and I like that it follows more or less the structure from Microsoft with those tables. Did you change anything on the severity or the enabled settings compared to the LinterCop?
That's a good question. Yes, I did an intense review of all the rules. What isn't really on the surface not really good to see, but behind the scenes, every rule I did a comprehensive analysis on, because I could easily just do a copy paste from one to the other. But then now's the time to do a review, if it's maybe missing something, or should we improve it, and what should be the default. Because previously we had kind of like a gentleman agreement that if we do new rules in the LinterCop, it will always be info. We didn't dare to do warning or error, because then we could break out pipelines that are out there. That's the last thing I want to do. Breaking pipelines is bad. So new rules I could only do as info, unless I was really sure it's going to be a runtime error. I then sometimes dare to set it as a warning, but I didn't dare to set it as an error. Now I have different cops. That does also make for me easier to set a higher severity level, because if you're interested in rules for the application, then I think also you will be interested in if they are severe enough to set them as a warning.
Agree.
And even there's also, what I also by a lot of rules did, is implementing a code fix.
Yes, I see that. There is that column. I believe I saw that on the LinterCop before already, but probably not as many.
No, that was also, again, I've gone to rule by rule, and then I assigned the rule where should it be. Should I clean up the code, because some rules were written years ago, and now there are new methods available for the AL language, so I could the .NET code for the rule behind the scenes I can improve. But also code fixes that is also released a few versions back already. I'm not sure what the exact version was, but Microsoft also opened it that custom code analyzers can also write code fixes. And we had like, I believe, five or six something-ish we had previous. And I've now added some more. I'm up to, I think, 30 code fixes total.
That means 30 rules that have code fix, right?
Correct, yeah. So you can just apply and it will do the code fix for you at a single click. There are some difficult, some of them are quite hard to make a code fix, because it's not always that easy to just change the code. So I couldn't write for every run of all of them. but also with working with GitHub Copilot or Claude, it will also help you most of the time also to already help you to resolve it. And there also I improved all the descriptions of the rules also, so that the description has more of a line that an agentic AI will understand and also know what to do on that severity. There's also all the writers have the descriptions match a little bit of the LinterCop, but some of them have changed on the description, on the title, and also maybe the message in the VS Code itself.
I was going to ask how much AI coding you leverage to pull this off, and assumed that improving the descriptions and titles would be an easy task for an LLM or for a coding agent. But I didn't get like that's a very good idea to improve it not only for humans but also for coding agents to understand correctly. So if there is no code fix that you can you can use, that at least the agent understands the problem and can fix it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the idea. And I also used, of course, agentic AI to help me in that. That's also my journey for working with the ALCops to also improve for myself to working with Claude or with Copilot. And even in the beginning, I also used ChatGPT to help me a little bit, but that evolved quite quickly to more use the tools instead of the copy pasting over into the chat screen of ChatGPT, for example. But also was a learning curve for me because I wanted to improve, but also don't waste a lot of time on it. So I want to quickly have a solution without doing anything manually, because that will take for like 100 rules. Everything manually, that would be impossible. So it's a little bit a hybrid combination of what do I want to change and let the agentic AI help me to get and achieve that goal.
Very interesting. So we have 6 different code cops now instead of one LinterCop. I see there is documentation to guide you through the migration as well.
Yeah. So if you're currently on the LinterCop, I did a mapping. So if you have already rule sets or just want to know what's a new one, I've made a list of the codes that are and the new codes that are there. And most of them are here.
Sorry for that. That was a small technicality. I hope we are back. I see the stream starting in YouTube. Now I see the preview. I think we can continue. Sorry.
Great, we're back. A small hiccup. As I was saying, I think I have most of the rules there. I'm like 95%. Like for example, in my screen, you see I have 2 rules that I still need to migrate. But I also want to look at the rules and change some implementation details. For that, I need a little bit more time. But most of them you can already have a table. But also there are quite some changes left or right to the rules. And that could be small things. On top of my head, for example, some rules, I think with labels, they will check if a label is something, and I will check if it's locked or not. And now maybe I have an example. Let me quickly do a VS Code thing. You see that it's maybe easier to do. For example, here a caption. There are some rules that will check if it's locked. But the funny part is we never check the value itself. So if it were true or false, the rule will say, I see a lock property, so we're good to go. But we never really checked if it's true or false, even. So some rules will expect that it will be set to true, and then the diagnostic will go away. But if you set it to false, then it will also go away, but you didn't really resolve the diagnostic. So if you move over to the ALCops, it's quite possible that you find new warnings or diagnostics that you thought you solved, but it will now even do a deeper dive to analyze the AL code on it. So it's also some small improvements. I also want to tackle and make sure that it does what you expected it to do.
So this is nothing I can just flip the switch in my pipelines in the general settings across my organization and be good with it. So it should be a little bit more thoughtful migration.
I would, that would be my advice. Is certainly in this time aspect, because I released it this week. There maybe should be some bugs I didn't find as of today. So jumping today is could be, of course, but this is quite could be quite an experimental. So I would first start with maybe using it on your own development machine to really see if it does what you expected, and then maybe move over to the pipelines in the next coming weeks.
I guess the rule set migration can be assisted with a coding agent just pointing it to that migration document, right? But how do I start using it in VS Code?
With VS Code, it's quite easy. The same as you would expect it with BusinessCentral.LinterCop. Let me jump here to VS Code again. There is an extension, ALCops extension. You can quite easily install that. Know that it's not supported to have and the LinterCop and the ALCops running at the same time, because I reused for the LinterCop the same diagnostic IDs. So my advice would be to in VS Code to disable it temporarily, the LinterCop, and start over for the ALCops. And here it's a little bit the same. You have here below your bar the ALCops where you can click on, and then you can decide what I want to open. So for example, if I enter says a linting, I want platform, but I don't care about formatting. But I want to do the ApplicationCop. You can then enable them, and it will help you then. Run this one.
Okay, I see.
It will then show you here.
Warning. Yeah.
That's right, the arrow. Yeah. Also here. And again, of course, you can link and have a camera cap again to the documentation. So it's for VS Code, what you already expected in the same as the LinterCop. There is one nice addition that you created this week for me, Stefan, on the MCP part. Should I show it directly, or do you want to?
If you can demo it, go ahead, of course.
To be honest, I'm struggling a little bit to get it working for myself. But we also have, I close this one. We have also the ALCops, and also now has an MCP server where you can then analyze, can let them analyze, but also community testing, also to apply those fixes, so that your even your agent also can use the code fixes that are provided with ALCops. I'm working here on VS Code, and there I have those analyze feature because we're working in EDI. If you're working, for example, with Claude Code or with Copilot CLI, you can also then use the analyze function, for example, to get the ALCops to analyze your changes or the file or even your whole project.
Yes.
I did try that here.
Is it connected? Can you show something? Should I elaborate a little bit?
I tried it, but I didn't get it to work, to be honest. But that's on me, probably.
I mean, I just did a brief test, and I did it with Claude Code, and it did work. Like I had one happy path test working, and then I was like, okay, now I need to wrap up for today because I was running out of time. But the idea is in general, yes, that it picks up whatever code cops you use in your configuration. It also works with the Microsoft cops. So it also picks up the Microsoft provided analyzers. It should, I think, if I remember correctly, it should either grab them from the installation of your VS Code extension. Otherwise, it will, I think, attempt or prompt you or something to download the NuGet package to get the DLLs and everything. But that's, yeah, the subject for testing and probably improvement. But the main factor for this is all Microsoft provided quick fixes are then also exposed to the MCP through the MCP to your coding agent.
The fun part is that there is even a question. I think if we have it still open here. If I jump back to the BusinessCentral.LinterCop, I think even there was a discussion or an action to how does the BusinessCentral.LinterCop work with AI? Here it is. So the question was already a few weeks back. And now we have with the ALCops the possibility to also provide that.
And one important thing is that there was a late change I did before I called it a day on that MCP server, that the quick fixes get applied directly. So the LLM will just run the quick fix. In the first draft, it would receive the things to change, and then it would be still like file edits from the agent. But I've changed that so the quick fix does update the code in a programmatic way, so we don't run through the LLM again and potentially have issues with the updates or anything like interpretation of what needs to be changed. But it's instead just a plain a routine, basically script that does apply the quick fixes provided by the analyzer.
Exactly, because like I said, this is brand new. We just delivered it a few days ago, so it's also in an early stage. But already I did get it working at a point of time. But today I tested again, and I struggle a little bit to get a demo for my side working. But you can absolutely try it out. And maybe if I jump into the repositories of ALCop, maybe that's interesting to start on the MCP repository.
Mm-hmm.
So we have now a new home for the ALCops on GitHub. We also have now multiple repositories on ALCops. And before I dive into the analyzers itself, let's first start on the MCP server. So that's also here on the ALCops umbrella, that you also can see that the MCP server is there, with the documentation also how you can install it, and also you can wire it up on your configuration. So here's also the information you find. I will try to update also the documentation website. It also have maybe some more explanation on here, but I first want to try it out a little bit more. And the great part is that we also now, you can quite easily install it here, you see, as a .NET tool. And if we do a little bit of a jump to the NuGet packages, because that was also one of the cracks. Let me jump in here. There was one of the cracks was also, like I said, the releasing at the beginning with the GitHub releases. You remember with those rate limited, and that it could download directly from GitHub. And now we have the releases depending going to NuGet. I think that will be beneficial for also the stability, but also for the release management. If I can now have multiple NuGet feeds. If I first jump in the analyzers, for example, we also now have a little bit of a version. We have now a decent version control. So for example, in our pipelines, what you could do is you could say I'm going to 0.5.0, and then if I create new releases in ALCops, you can then review them and then decide it on your pipeline to upgrade to a newer version. It also helps for me to also introduce new rules, but maybe have a warning or even an error as a standard severity. That way I also hope to prevent breaking pipelines, because now in your pipeline you can discern what version you want to use for the analyzer, for example.
Okay, so the contribution path now is a little bit different, right? I think I already saw something in the README. I create a fork and then I just create a PR on main branch, or how does that work?
Yeah. So before I dive into that, so we have now a few of them, and I wanted to also go here. The MCP server is currently at 0.1, the alpha 1 release. So next couple of weeks, I would expect some fine tuning, and then maybe we could release version 1.0. But the benefit of working with NuGet, you can also now quite easily install an MCP server. So the foundation of working with NuGet was also really helpful. Big part for me because LinterCop didn't use that today. And I was also blocked by using that. Because if I jump again back to the LinterCop, if you go to the releases there, like this, you have all those files with those version numbers in them. You know the time way back that we had one release? That was,
Yes.
I think, a few years back now.
It's quite some time ago, yeah.
Quite some time ago, right? And then I think I'm even responsible for that.
Yes.
This mess, to be honest, that we now have a huge amount of assets. So one release is like 48 assets that I count here. This was also holding me back to go to NuGet. What I could do is just wrap them all up in a zip file and push it over to NuGet. But yeah, that would be awkward, right?
Yeah, you could just get everything.
Yeah, and that doesn't feel right. And conversion control, would that be difficult? And then grab all the DLLs to have one file, but you really need it. But you can't update, of course, a NuGet package. Here you see some different dates.
Yeah.
Here we cheat a little bit. On an existing release, we'll just create a new asset with the same version number. That did work quite well for us, but isn't the best practice, to be honest. And there I also made a huge jump for the NuGet packaging. And before the contribution part jump in, what we now have is one file that will work for all the AL versions of Business Central.
Yeah, you told me about this, but I didn't really understand how that's possible, to be honest.
What I now do is, I think I can show it quite easily from here. I'm also maybe have some time to also let it write into the documentation. But what we do is if I get a pipeline here, that's I think the most easy part. We have all those versions of the AL language from version 12 up to version 17 on the top.
Yeah.
I here did the switch the other way around because previously we were looking at the VFX file as the driver, and then I kind of implement this a little bit the NuGet feed from the Business Central DevTools. And here I moved it around because if you look at here, this is a VSX file, so that's from the marketplace. It has a different version number than the AL language that's inside of it. So the AL language side of it is coming the main driver. And I'm looking at the target framework it's targeting. That is now my only differentiation. What I do is all these AL files from the version 16 to version 17 are all based on .NET 8.0. What I've now done is with using heavily on reflection, that if I create one file, as long as I'm targeting the same .NET version, that one file will work from version 16 up to version 17. So we don't have to build for every version a new DLL.
Okay, how that implementation to detect those different versions and route in the code exactly would probably take a little bit too far for this stream. I'm personally very interested in how that works, but yeah, that's impressive. So when you go back to NuGet, we would see a release for .NET 8 and one for 2.1.
Correct. If you look at the Package Explorer, and that's a part I've now implemented indeed for the VS Code extension, but I need to do it also for the pipelines. Note that for the pipelines, you have to decide, do I need the NetNut 8.0 or the net standard, the previous version? And that's the only differentiations you have. I've included this one for backwards compatibility. Also looking forward, if I will guess in a few months, maybe some longer, Microsoft will also jump to .NET 10.0, for example. Then the foundation is there to also support that.
Okay, so I need to just be careful with my pipelines when Microsoft flips the switch that I need to flip the switch as well, basically, with the follow through.
Correct. And what I wanted to create is an Azure DevOps VS Code extension that will dynamically determine which one of those do I need. It's a little bit complicated with all those kind of different sources, because you have you can have basic dev tools grabbing from the NuGet feed, or you could have from the PC artifact grabbing the development tool. So a little bit researching there that still needs to be done.
Okay. But what I'm hearing is that in theory, pipelines are also supported already.
They are a little bit supported on. I test all the versions. So every time you do a pull request, it will test to all the versions to make sure that everything is also working as you would expect it. And for pipelines, if I jump back, if you have your own custom PowerShell of your own custom logic, that will work as of today. For ALGo, I've created an helper where you can then grab an installer, and that will then grab for you the right NuGet feed and the right files. Only here it will assume that you're on 16.0 or higher, so it will always default to those net 8.0 you saw earlier on.
Basically to the latest, right?
Latest, yeah. Okay. Also documented here. If you have a lower version, you can set this parameter to a standard 2.1, and then it will get switched back again. So here you have to make some logic in your pipelines if you also have all the versions you need to support. For Azure DevOps, I'm still looking into. We at our company also use ourselves Azure DevOps. And there I'm searching a little bit on how can I create something that will work with, for example, if you have your own custom PowerShell, or if you maybe a solution like ALCops or Alpaca. That takes a little bit more time, so that's not ready as of today. And hoping in the next couple of weeks or something, maybe I have a first draft on that.
I mean, if everybody has to test this and verify this on the repos locally first anyways, which already works in VS Code, so that gives you a little bit of time to get the pipelines up and running before anybody should start on migrating the pipeline.
Absolutely, and if maybe some of them already use NuGet packaging like Packet or something else to work with dependencies. It is as a day NuGet feed, so maybe you could choose to also do another implementation and let your packet manager handle this. But but I think your idea is great. You need to start with VS Code first and experiment a little bit that how it works. If you have maybe something you didn't expect or anything, because there's one rule that has heavily been shaped, is the TransferFields rule. So I'm quite certain that it will throw new warnings or errors. Now warnings, I believe the default is at you, because it's now covering more scenarios.
I saw that repository already.
Yeah. Should I dive into that one? Because that's also a funny thing for that here. I think that's a great improvement that I also could bring to the ALCops.
I mean, we still have some time, so yeah, why not? And by the way, I see we do have some people following the live stream. If there are any questions or anything you would want to know about, feel free to just use the chat and send a message. I'm looking at it, so then we can maybe answer some of them already live on stream.
That would be great. I'm curious what people think out there, or maybe have a little bit experience already on it, or maybe wishes what they want to see, or I can really use help and input from the community to drive this further on. So if you have ideas, I would love to hear them. And this one, I had an idea that we can improve this rule on. I know it by number. Maybe the users who are working with BusinessCentral.LinterCop also know it. So I'll jump a little bit quick back to this one before I dive in. What the rule was. This was the transfer field rule that will have matching fields. This was a community contribution also to the LinterCop. It will help if you, for example, have added a custom fields to a table with the table extension. Again, for example, sales header or something, and you have also added a field to a related table that is coupled to transfer fields. They need to match, so they have to be for the same type. Otherwise, you will get a runtime error with some functionality. We have some demos on that already in the past. So this is the starting point. And I think there were like a 200 rule tables defined in the LinterCop that are coupled. But then I thought, I have a code analyzer, so it can analyze code for me. So why shouldn't I let the code analyzer analyze what transfer fields are there? We did a demo together on, I believe, was in directions.
Yes,
I
remember that story, how that happened. I think the first 200 rules were a result of the directions intervention I did on this. If you want to, I can elaborate a little bit on this.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
So we had that session on directions EMEA, and I just converted it to a blog post. No, I did not, because it's not recorded. So I don't remember exactly which year it was. Was it 2 years ago, 3 years ago? I don't know. But essentially, last minute, I don't know how we came up with this idea, but I remember sitting in the speaker room, hacking together a new linter, basically, a new analyzer to just parse the base app to find transfer fields and their source and target tables. Because, I mean, finding the transfer fields is easy, right? You can just parse the text. But finding out what exact table is behind the variable, either rec dot nothing, just the transfer fields implicit with, basically, or the variable that might be cryptic named, is not that easy with just text. So the analyzer did, I think, a good job. But I'm sure you have improved the rules since then, since that was just like a quick shot in between. So.
No, I do remember the starting point is a little bit on. You can create your own custom analyzer. You could also use a custom analyzer to retrieve information from your projects. TransferFields was a great example. So I took that idea, and then I thought I let the analyzer analyze transfer fields. So what I did here is create an analyzer that will it will output a JSON for me. That will say the account scheduling is my source object, the target is the result line, and I found it in the base application and even on a country specific one, this one. And what I did is then I created a pipeline, and it will then run over all the versions. So these are all the Business Central versions for every country. They do run sometime, a little bit of a testing. So for example, it will run for one version for all the localizations, because in the LinterCop I only have W1, I believe, but there are some localizations specific that also will have transfer fields.
That are not present in W1, right?
Correct, they're not present W1 indeed. They will be even in a customized base app or in an additional extension that's packaged into the app artifact. So what I do is I grab a Business Central artifact, for example, for a version for a country specific, and then loop through all the extensions. And for every extension, I will search for all the transfer fields. then output them and grab them and combining them all together. So we have for each version one and then aggregate it again. So that will help me to create for every version a list for each country, for each combination and where it's found. So we had, like we said, about 200 couplings. It decreased now to almost 400. So it's a doubling on the amount of transfer fields I found. But what I also did, oh, sorry, yeah?
Yeah, I wanted to say it's probably also reducing some false positives, right?
Could be indeed. Could be that there are some that are not anymore there. And I also improved, for example, including the namespace. This version doesn't exist, but if I go to a newer version, I'm also handling namespaces because that's also in the foundation now. That wasn't in the Business Central version. So if somebody would, not of today, but in the future, also have the same object name, it will also grab the namespace. So I'm also not going to raise false positives on that. And I also did something extra because now I know the source and I know the target also. So also the rule will also now look at the unidirectional coupling, because if you have, like for example, going from a text with a length of 50 going to a text field with a length of 100, it shouldn't raise a warning. Maybe an info could be, but it's okay because that's supported by TransferFields. So I have almost 500 unidirectional couples now. So the rule improved a lot. So it will be more specific. And it also got rule even in two parts, because we have one rule now that will check only the type, and another rule will check the object name, the field name in this case. So if the field name is off but the type is okay, that will be a warning, because we have to look at it, is this really okay? And only if the type is off, they will get an error, because that will throw you a runtime error.
So that's one of the few rules probably that will actually prevent compiling if you do not follow the rule, if you have it enabled.
If you have enabled, yeah, it will then throw an error, because it will probably, if you pass that code, it will throw a runtime error in Business Central. And know that if you do see a line and you said, that's strange, I'm quite sure that I have no idea where that TransferFields then is. You can always look in this repo, and if you say, I have an analysis by the mission parameters to the user params, I've also outputted here where I found it and in which method, in which object I found. So you could also look here if you have a TransferFields and you say, I'm quite sure it's there or not in the base app. You can see where I found it, where my code analyzer found it.
No room for guessing.
No, nice. It's all there.
One thing before we continue, there was a question now. Also, somebody installed it now for the first time. So yeah, hopefully it does work and bring benefit to you. And the question was if there is any rule on how to use the try functions.
Sorry, a rule on the try functions?
On the try functions, yes.
There currently isn't a rule in place, but the idea was there also in the Business Central LinterCop already. The hard part on there is that the try function rule, I'm guessing that rule should raise a diagnostic if you do database modifications like modify or something else, because they aren't rolled back in the try function. I'm right about that, right? Doing this top of my head?
It's not specified, but yeah, that would be my first guess as well.
Yeah. The problem there a little bit is the chaining of methods. So one method could call another method, and then the chain down, and then calling the step method below. That will then have a try function. The problem is determining if there was. Sorry, I need to start the sentence again. It's the other way around. Sorry. You have a try function. In the try function, you call another method, and that method calls another method, and then the third level below method has a write function. On the method itself, I cannot see that there's that it's a try function because the decorator is not on that method, but it's 2 levels up. So I have to follow the path that the code is executing, and that's a tough one on static code analysis. Because, for example, if the public method, it could be called from another extension. So it's quite difficult and it could be quite messy. So first we said we're not going to do it because we cannot guarantee that we can cover all scenarios. But to be honest, I'm thinking of creating it for the ALCops because now I could easily have following that path inside your extension. It will not cover all scenarios, but maybe it will be helpful if you have that error inside your own extension. So it will not be 100% covering all scenarios, but I think it's a good starting point to have it for the most common errors that could occur, or only if the methods are called within your own extension.
I mean, it could also like throw warning or an error if you or I don't know, if we can prove that there is a problem, if the analyzer can prove this is 3 levels deep, this is called like this, it's strong link, basically it detects that, then we can prove there is a problem with this, or throw an info whenever there is a path that leads outside the extension. For example, that if you have a try function and within there is an event publisher, then there could be an external event subscriber which then does a modifier, which I think would still fall in the same transaction, right? Which then causes the same error. So when you do that, throw an info or something, a different diagnostic to say, well, this is potentially unsafe here.
That's also a good idea. What would be helpful is to maybe start with an issue or a discussion. If you have a good idea, I think for the try function, I would be okay to start creating an issue. We need to gather some information because now you mentioned the event subscribers. There's also on it, it's the ignore commit, the decorator on it. We have to first look a bit at it. What should the rule do? What should the rule cover? What should it not? What should it skip so that it doesn't raise false positive? That is a great rule. So you maybe even could start directly with an issue, and then we could gather some feedback from the community. You could also start a discussion that you have an idea, and there I said I have an idea. Maybe it's just a good idea to have a rule on it. Then we could get some information from the community. That's also helpful for me because sometimes it's challenging to find all the exclusions you have to do so you don't raise any false positives.
Yeah,
that's helpful first if somebody will review the idea. So that's also helpful to start with discussion. But I'm fine with both of them. But really helpful to start here.
Okay, we were looking at the transfer fields. There is something left you want to cover, or was that done?
I think I'm covered also the transfer fields, most of them. So it's also an example for a rule I, to be honest, ripped out and built again from scratch. Because the AL language also improved under the hood. I have more methods that I can cover now. So that was helpful to re-implement the rule and then also bring over those improvements. I think we covered a lot of it. For the transfer fields, absolutely. And so that we can round up. I'm looking if I have something else, but not top of my mind now. Maybe do you have any follow-up questions or anything we should cover now?
Let me look at my prepared sheet here. I think. Oh, one last question, maybe to wrap everything up as well. Now we've seen where everything's going. We've seen the progress of how many rules were already migrated to the CodeCops or the ALCops. With that in mind, how long will the LinterCop be continued? It's a little bit weird to ask you that about a repository on my GitHub, but that has different reasons.
to be honest, I find it difficult to get a time path on it, because if there really is a huge breaking change, I'm not sure if I have the time to invest in the LinterCop to resolve it. So currently it's on live support. No, we also use it internally at our company. So if it will break tomorrow, I'm also in trouble. So for now, I want to have it working, because we're also relying it as of today. We're internally also not jumped over to the ALCops net yet. So no, I want to have it working at least the next couple of months. But it's I'm not sure if I can resolve all problems. The AI language does evolve to the future, so I'm not sure how much longer. I see all those, like at the beginning I said, see all the crack in the roads. But I'm not sure how long I can hold up with the current Business Central implementation. So I'm guessing a few months, but yeah, it's difficult to set an exact time path on it. But as long as I can make it let the LinterCop work without having to review or implement a lot of changes, I will try to do my best for maybe even to the end of this year, so that everybody has the time to gradually jump over. I do believe that you have to have enough time to review ALCops, to see how will I implement it in our solutions, how will I train maybe my developers, how do I implement it in my agentic AI. I need to review the rule set again. That takes some time, so I'm trying to keep up the current LinterCop as long as possible in the air.
Interesting, but from what I hear, there probably won't be any new rules on the linter anymore, right?
Correct. So that was also the deprecation I said. Let's go to the begin screen again. The repository itself is deprecated, so it won't receive any new updates anymore. With updates, I mean indeed new rules, or if you have a false positive, then maybe you should then have set a pragma around it to unblock yourself. If you have like a warning or an error set at it, I'm not going to change the implementation details of LinterCop anymore. But the pipelines are still running. Means if there's a new version of the AL language coming out, LinterCop will also provide a new DLL file, so your current setup should keep on working. So that's what I try to do.
Okay. Thank you. And there is another question about warnings of converting a sign from option fields to enum. For example, a table has a table relation to many tables, whereas shipment line has source subtype fields that links to sales line and purchase lines. Does Microsoft have a solution for this? Yeah.
You have to help me a little bit on the question. Is that an implicit conversion from enum to option, or did I?
I think the source subtype is a field that's just integer, if I remember correctly now from the top of my head, which should not fall under that conversion, but I think it's okay. There was a correct. So I think we're talking about the implicit conversion.
And on the TransferFields or on another rule?
No, in general, I think if you assign an enum to an option field or an integer.
There was also a question on the LinterCop today, so I'm going to, I'm not sure if that is also the person asking the question, but I'm going to reuse that. Where did I found it? I saw it today. No, wait. I'm in the wrong place. Let's go to the ALCops, to the analyzers. There was an issue today. I'm not sure if this is the same exact example, but I think this will help me to explain it a little bit. There was the platform has a rule. It will check if you do, for example, on a record a get, you have your two parameters. It will then validate if that matches the primary keys of that table. And this is, for example, most of the developers know the all objects or captions system table. There you can get, for example, the table with an ID. And the rule will here raise a diagnostic. The problem is that the record table, the first primary key, I think, will be an option and not an enum. And here was even a better one, I believe. It's the same example. And I think we have here even an example. I'm going to read this now. I'm going to jump to the documentation. The rule will expect from you, because it's an implicit conversion. For example, for enum to option, there are some examples like here below that you could argue that it's not maybe necessary, but just to have clarity. What I expect is you to convert the enum to as an integer, because the option set will also be handled as an integer value. And in that way, you are certain that you intentionally are converting an enum to an option. So that is an extra part you have to add yourself to make the diagnostic go away. You could also maybe use a pragma around it, but the rule default will not allow an enum to an option, because it could be that you mistakenly have the wrong enum. Then it's quite difficult to detect if that enum matches that option set or not, because there are no link between those two objects. So implicitly set it as an integer, that you also know I'm going to pass the integer value, and then the receiver should have also matched the numbers with my enum.
Does that answer the question? What did we understand the question right? And was this what you wanted to know? I like that approach, and maybe if I can add a little bit to that explanation why that as integer function is relevant here. In the case that you actually use the enum in the right parameter field, basically, so you're actually aiming at that integer and it's the correct one you want to target, then yes, then this might work. But maybe you were slipping in the section and you are targeting an also an integer where implicit conversion might work technically, but it would be the wrong field you're assigning it to. Then this warning will help you to think about it and find that wrong assignment. If you wanted to assign it to an enum, but you accidentally assigned it to maybe not a quantity field because that would be a decimal, but you get my idea, I think, to the wrong field, and it does implicit conversion automatically without letting you know that you're doing an implicit conversion, then you might miss that. Maybe.
Yeah, helpful. Yeah, that was indeed a good explanation. That because also the other way around, if you have an integer and you want, you have an integer and want to pass it to an enum, you also have the from integer.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the same idea, but the other way around also. But the idea that you mentioned, what you touched on, great, is to help preventing a mistake. That's why we don't prohibit the automatic conversion, the implicit, because that would then, probably doesn't help you if you then make a mistake, because then it'll show you a diagnostic or something.
Okay, I think we're almost at our limit for this time slot, so if there are any remaining questions, now would be the time. Otherwise, I think we'll come to an end slowly. Thank you for joining this, Arthur. I texted you up because I was mostly interested in getting some answers to those questions I had personally, and I thought, why not record it? Why not make it public to everybody? So it might be a good idea to also link this somewhere in the documentation or somewhere to just give people an idea or a place to get the overview of what this is about and how to transition and everything we discussed. And yeah, it was very insightful.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me. I'm pitching the idea. It's indeed helpful to to go through it together. And with the stream you provided, it was an easy one for me to jump in. So that was my pleasure to talk to you and joining your stream.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I have that stream for.
Great.
All right, I think there are no further questions. So let me wrap up for today. Thanks everybody also for joining us live. I see there are like 6 people watching. It's always nice to see those numbers, to know that it's not like talking to nobody right here. So that's always nice. And as always, if you're not subscribed yet, consider doing so, because unlike this stream, which was announced before and scheduled a time before, I might also just start some streams for live coding on demand, and then you'll at least get notified, so you know when I start a stream. All right, then that's left to saying thanks for joining, and see you next time.